Today, I would like to do a piece on a guy that I met from APB. His name is Kre Kre. I think he has a franchise called 600 Stories. I ended up meeting Kre Kre from APB, that's a blood out of Los Angeles, Athens Parks Bloods. I was in Inglewood, FCI hole, because I was in the jail unit. A guy that told on me said that I was sending drugs to Denver. And while I was indicted from Fort Worth, they sent me to Denver, and I was in the jail unit in Denver for a few months. I ended up getting into a fight with some guys that was in my unit. And while I was there fighting over the phone, they end up running into my cell and found a can in a sock, a juice can that said that it was a weapon, and they put me in a hole in the FCI, Inglewood. And while I was in Inglewood hole, I had never been in a hole like that before. It was real dangerous. The doors would pop open. There was big rats in there. I was fighting a case that I wasn't a part of. They had me, EMAC, Structo, and a lot of guys that was in the hole with me. I had come to find out that we was all in the hole together. We was always would talk through the doors and everything. And I would talk to them through the vent that was next door to my cell. And I would, every time somebody would move, they would move somebody new into the cell next door to me. And I would talk to them. And one time, they moved a guy next door to me named Icy Ice from Hoover. And me and Ice was talking about how he ended up coming to jail in Denver. And he told me that they had a sting operation in the Hoover hood. I think he was from either from 7-4 or 8 trade. But by me being in this hole, I really needed to have somebody to talk to. So I started talking to Ice, and Ice was telling me that he had been arrested in a sting operation in Los Angeles, and they sent him to Inglewood to start doing his time. And he was telling me that, he was from Hoover, and I told him I was Big Fish from 7-6, Street East Coast, and I called my case out of Denver. I caught this case out of Denver, but I was living in Texas, and some guy that was one of the biggest rats in Denver, his name was Malcolm Green, they called him Inch. He said that he had got some drugs from me and that I used to talk to him on the phone, and my phone was at my business, and the business phone was supposed to be connected to his phone in Denver. But I said that my phone couldn't be connected to nobody's phone, because this phone have a block on it, and you can't call long distance on this phone, and that's how I beat the case. But to make a long story short, after Icy left, I ran into this guy named Kre Kre. Kre Kre was in the hole one night about 5 o'clock in the evening. I hear this guy coming through the hole, to the hole, yelling out blood. Blood this, blood that. I never really heard nobody yell out blood like that until I heard this guy one evening. And they had him handcuffed. They was wrestling him down, trying to get him on the ground, and they brought him all the way from the kitchen. He said that a woman swung on him in the kitchen that worked at the prison, and they got into it. And I guess Kre Kre got the best of her, and they tackled him on the ground and they sent him to the hole. But on the way to the hole, he yelling out, blood. That song, blood, blood this and blood that. And I was thinking it was a big old guy, like about 6'6", 6'7". So when I got up and I went to the window of my cell to see who this guy was, because I never heard a guy say blood 100 times in a row without missing a beat. So when they brought him to the cell, they threw him in the cell next door to me, and I was kind of wondering who was this guy. And this guy, I asked him, I said, hey man, where you from, homie? He said, I'm from Athens Parks Bloods. I said, is that right? I said, what's your name? He said, my name is Kre Kre, blood. I'm like, is that right? I said, I'm Big Fish from 7'6", I'm from East Coast. And I was supposed to have been in the jail unit, but they got me over here in the hole. I had a fight over there, and they put me over there. He said, okay. I said, well, I said, do you know my uncle named Bullet from 135th? He said, yeah, man, I know your uncle. Yeah, I know your Uncle Blood. I'm like, all right, young. So we got to talking, and he was telling me that he knew my uncle. And this guy would become a friend of mine, and he would become a guy that I end up seeing in 3-4 prisons. And he was telling me that how he used to put all these B's in order. And this was the first time I heard a guy say big back, bacon bull. And this guy was a word lyricist, and he can know how to say blood a lot, and he know how to put it in order, and he know how to make it where it sound real entertaining. And this guy, we talked about everything from all the way from Liso Village to Carson, and he was telling me about his hood, and I told him I was going to play football at Athens, but I got recruited to Real Rogers, and we end up talking about, you know, different things and different hoods and different things. So I always would give him a phone number so he can call, because I couldn't use the phone. I was on phone restriction, and I started giving him a phone number to call certain girls, and he used to call girls. But when he went to the compound, I can say that this guy would always come and talk to me through the vent of upstairs, because it was the hole was under the drug unit. And once a week, Kre Kre would come and talk to me through the vent. He would send me cigarettes. He would send me matches and stuff so I can sell them in the hole. And this guy really looked out for me, but he didn't know that I wasn't having a good time in the hole, because I was in there on DS, and I didn't have no radio, none of that stuff, because they took all that stuff because I threw some feces on one of the officers that kept messing with me in the hole. But to make a long story short, I ended up going to Leavenworth, and me and Kre Kre started doing time. And then I ended up seeing Kre Kre again. We walked the yard with Trey K. We walked the yard with a lot of guys from LA, a lot of guys that I had kind of met in the system. And not only that, we was in Leavenworth together, we ended up going to Lompoc together. And while we was in Lompoc, we had a hell of a community there, which the Bloods and Crips, we all kind of like got along. But I always noticed this guy, Kre Kre, that was a real good guy. He was a real blood, and he was about the blood business. And I heard he had a thing right now that's going all over the country with the blood thing. And I always looked at him, and I looked up to him, and I always looked and see he was a real guy. And any time that I was around Kre Kre, I always knew that if I ever got into something or I really needed to help to get out of something, he was there to watch my back. And we became like brothers of family. And I always respected Kre Kre, and I always wished the best for him. But I didn't know that Kre Kre had a hidden talent, which was playing the drums. He really knew how to get into the music business, or the beats. And I always hear Kre Kre was always would be talking to the guys, and I would always see him when I walk by. He would always blood this, and I always would laugh, and I would always say, "All right, Kre Kre, what's up, baby bro?" And we would always laugh and keep it going, keep it moving. But I heard Kre Kre have his own thing now called 600 Stories, and I really wanted to shine light on this guy. He's a real soldier for the Bloods. He's a real soldier for LA, California, wherever he is, he's with it, and he's with the business. And this guy is a real blood that I know he's down, and I know that he will rise to any occasion. When you bring it to him, you better bring it right, because he's going to rise to the occasion and do something to you. Kre Kre, AP Base.